Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with, if I could choose only one work by composer X, it would have to be work U. Well, composer X is Pergolesi, and you know what the work is. This is going to be a quickie. It's the Stabat Mater. Pergolesi Stabat Mater for soprano and strings, the most beautiful distillation of Baroque lyricism in the universe. And there isn't anything else by Pergolesi that anybody cares about. So if the evil god Cancresans decided to eliminate all of classical music but one work, and he got rid of everything except by Pergolesi except the Stabat Mater, we wouldn't be any the worse for wear, which is actually not true because there's really a good bit of other music by Pergolesi, but nobody knows it. And far be it from me to insist that everybody go get to know it. You know, Stravinsky claimed that the melodies that he borrowed for Pulcinella were by Pergolesi, but they weren't. There was only like one or two of them that was actually turned out to be by Pergolesi. Most of the rest of them, including all the juicy ones, were by Domenico Gallo. So, but Stravinsky didn't know that. He thought it was Pergolesi. But Pergolesi died when he was, 26 or something like that? And he wrote this Stabat Mater setting. And there is something in this particular piece that is so heartfelt and lovely. You know, the poem itself is a depiction of, Mary, the Virgin Mary, at the cross, weeping at the foot of the cross as Jesus is being crucified and dying. And it's one of the most emotional poems in the entire Catholic liturgy. It's an exquisitely beautiful poem, a portrait of motherly grief. And the Pergolesi setting of it, is so heartfelt and in its simplicity and directness. It's the work of a young man, a young man who's still really feeling everything freshly and vividly for the first time. It's a setting that made his reputation, and really there are only three Stabat Mater settings after that, I guess, that really approach it, that are worth hearing. Four. How many are there? Four. Let's think. There's Boccherini, which is also exquisitely beautiful, and it's in the tradition of the Pergolesi, and he must have known it, of course. There's Haydn, which is the one of the biggest Stabat Mater settings in the entire repertoire. There's Dvorak's, which is the biggest Stabat Mater setting in the entire repertoire. They're both deeply moving pieces that were based on sincere devotion to the cult of the Virgin Mary, worship of the Virgin Mary. And finally, there's Poulenc. That's your Stabat Mater sort of a repertoire. And so the argument when we present this work to the evil god Cancresans and beg him not to destroy all of classical music but for one work by each composer is that we should be able to hear those other great settings of the same poem and listen to them and make comparisons, because they are magnificent. They're extraordinarily intense and emotional settings, and it really began with Pergolesi, with that beautiful, beautiful setting. There is, by the way, this is just an amazing thing. Pergolesi died very young, and there's a science fiction story.Maybe some of you read it. I don't remember who the author was, but the story was great. It's about a bunch of, scientists who have the ability to do time travel sort of thing, and they want to rescue Pergolesi. They want to save him from dying, because he was very young when he died, and he was like of whatever people died of back in those days. It could be anything. So they go back in time and they grab Pergolesi and they bring him into the 24th century or wherever they are, and they cure him. I mean, they give him antibiotics and they clean him up. And they do it because they're so moved by the Stabat Mater that they want him to live and write more music, to create more music. And they figure, well, if we clean him up, he won't die at the age of 26. He'll be able to write one masterpiece after another. And so they clean him up and they get him, situated, and they give him, paper or a computer or whatever, and they expect the musical masterpieces to come pouring forth. But what really happens is that he becomes a head-banging pop music rock person who ODs and dies at the age of 26 or whatever it was. He becomes it's a futuristic thing, a fringe head or whatever they call it, but and he becomes a completely dissipated wreck, exactly the way he was back in the 18th century or 17th century, whatever it was, the 18th century, I guess it was. And it's a wonderful story about the futility of trying to turn people into something that they weren't. So we should be very grateful that we have the PERGOLESI Stabat Mater to enjoy, and it is absolutely lovely and a sad reminder of a talent that never lived to be quite as fulfilled as it supposedly might have been. Anyway, keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.